I'm 14,000 feet in the air, getting ready to jump out of the plane. Am I scared to go skydiving? Absolutely. Was I up the entire night before worrying about it? Of course I was. But was I finally ready to face my fear and overcome it? No. Absolutely not. But I didn't even really want to be there. This was all just a consequence of me trying to sound cool at a party. It's the summer of 2010, and I'm going through a really rough time in my life. I'm in the middle of a divorce. But if there's a silver lining, it's that I'm going to be moving from the west suburbs of Chicago to the big city. Something I always wanted to do but never did, and now I finally can. And at 34 years old, I consider this the first step in this new Benjamin Button lifestyle I have planned for myself. Where the older I got, the cooler I would become. Except here's the thing. I'm not a cool guy. I'm a high anxiety guy, full of very awkward moments. The first day in my new apartment, I stepped outside and thought to myself, this is the first day of the rest of my life. And a bird shit on my head. I'm the kind of person that gets so anxious that even mundane things like making small talk with strangers is very difficult for me. But I try some self-help. I read books like How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I do some online research about how to talk to strangers. And I come across this website forum that suggests if you want a conversation starter, always have an interesting factoid in your back pocket that you can just pull out if you need something to talk about. For example, what interesting thing happened on this day in history? So on June 28th, 2010, I did some research. And now all I needed was an audience. So I went down to the lobby of my apartment building, stood by the elevators, and waited. It's 6 p.m., like elevator rush hour time. And eventually some people shuffle into the elevator, and I get in behind them, and the doors close, and it's totally silent. And that's when I said, so it's John Cusack's birthday today. And nobody said anything. It was totally silent. The tension was so thick I was choking on it. Until finally, somebody got off the elevator. And as the doors closed, they turned around and looked at me and they said, well, that was unnecessary. And they just left me in there with that comment and all those people. Needless to say, my attempt at self-help set me back a few steps. But my friends were determined to help me out, and they take me to a party. And now I'm at a party at a venue full of strangers. And I'm talking to a group of people, and one of them asks me if I have any cool plans over the summer. And I don't know if I'm just trying to fit in or if it's that anxiety I get when making conversation with strangers, but I just try to think of the coolest thing that I could think of, and I blurt out, I think I'm going to go skydiving, which is not true at all. If I want to seek thrills, I don't jump out of airplanes. I do the Saturday New York Times crossword puzzle. For you non-nerds, that's the hardest puzzle of the week. But I figured, what's the harm in letting this little fantasy play out? Until one of the people in the group says that they're going skydiving the next weekend, and they insist that I go with them. And I said, hold on a second. And now I'm trying to think of any excuse I can to get out of it. I'm in damage control. And I said, well, my car's not working. And they said, well, I'll come pick you up. I say, I don't think I can afford it. And they said, well, there's a Groupon for like 80% off right now, so. And again, with that conversational anxiety, the only thing I could think of to say next was, okay. Now it's the night before the big jump. And I'm doing all of that paranoid Googling you do before an event like this. And I Google, what if my parachute doesn't open? And I find this website with frequently asked questions about skydiving, and that was one of the questions. What if my parachute doesn't open? And the answer was, you're more likely to win the lottery than get struck by lightning on your way to that facility before your chute doesn't open. And even if it doesn't open, you have a backup chute. And the next question was, what if my backup chute doesn't open? And the answer was, you're going to have a pretty bad day. So armed with that information, I went to the facility. But the first few times you go skydiving, you go tandem, which means you're attached to your instructor. Your instructor is behind you. But my instructor was like 6 foot something. So when he stood up, I was just like a little baby in one of those baby Bjorns. Was I scared to jump? The instructor had to use his full body weight to shove me out of that airplane. On the way down, I'm supposed to check the altimeter, and at a certain height, I'm supposed to pull the chute open. But I didn't do any of that because I was too busy going, ah! He checked the altimeter. He pulled the chute open. And now we're floating there. And that's when I realized, you know what? The scariest part wasn't the jumping out at 14,000 feet. And neither was it the plummeting to the earth at 120 miles per hour. That's not the scariest part. No, it's after that, when the chute opened. And I'm just gently floating there amongst this huge expanse of sky and land. And I'm just trying to soak up all of that poetic, majestic beauty, while simultaneously spooning with this large stranger. Just right up against my backside. The anxiety of having to make small talk with this guy. And it wasn't even John Cusack's birthday. Fast forward 13 years, 1 year of improv classes, 6 years of stand-up comedy, and 13 years of therapy. And I can confidently say, I don't get so anxious making small talk with strangers anymore. But I don't have any plans to go skydiving. Thank you very much.